Seated. All right, over the break, the bailiff came and told me when you publish something to the jury, make sure all of them get to see it and give them time to look at it. I think last time during your cross-examination, some of them said they didn't get to see what you were trying to publish to them. All right?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, anything from the state before we bring the jury in?
Your Honor, just as a matter of scheduling, I do have 2 doctors here who traveled from Charleston. I believe we should be able to get through them before lunch, but I would ask that we try to do that since they did travel from Charleston this morning.
It depends on how long they take, okay?
Yes.
We got lunch coming for the jury, so, you know, we're not gonna go I mean, we're gonna break for lunch. If we have to go over a little bit, that's fine, but, you know, we're not gonna go past 1, I can tell you that.
Pardon me?
We're not gonna go past 1.
Oh, no, I don't think we will. The 2 doctors are the forensic pathologist and then a forensic odontologist.
All
So we should be well within that time.
All right. Anything from the state, else from the state before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jury in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Make sure you have your own notepad, not have anybody else's notepad. State can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Dr. Presnell. Dr. Presnell, sorry.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
My name is Susan Aaron Presnell. It's Presnell.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Still good morning, Dr. Presnell. How are you?
Good morning.
Can you please tell the jury what you do for a living?
I'm a forensic pathologist. I work at MUSC in Charleston.
How long have you been doing that?
I have been on faculty there since 1999, so going on 26 years.
Can you tell the jury what a forensic pathologist does?
Well, I think people are getting more familiar with what forensic pathology is, but just kind of To back up, forensic pathology is actually a subspecialty of pathology, the general field of pathology. And so pathology itself means a study of disease. And so pathologists diagnose disease. So like if you go to your doctor and get a biopsy of something, that tissue will go to the pathologist, they'll look at it and they diagnose it. Is it cancer, is it not? So I trained in general pathology, but then I subspecialized in forensic pathology, where instead of just looking at a piece of tissue, we're looking at the entire body of somebody that's passed. And we are looking for diseases, but we're also evaluating for trauma. That process that we do that evaluation, of course, is called the autopsy. And then through the process of autopsy, we'll determine a cause and manner of death.
Can you tell us what your educational background is?
So I went to Clemson way back when, and majored in microbiology. After I finished Clemson, I moved to MUSC at Charleston for medical school, and then I've stayed there ever since, so that makes this easier. So I did my 4 years of medical school at MUSC Charleston. After medical school, I chose pathology as my area of specialty, did that at Charleston. Then after that, I chose the year subspecialty in forensics done in Charleston, and after that, I was hired as a faculty there, and I've been there ever since. Along this way, I've taken the board, so I'm board certified in general pathology as well as forensic pathology. And then I also have a license to practice medicine in the state of South Carolina.
Thank you. And you mentioned earlier autopsies, that one of your duties is to perform autopsies. If you can you estimate how many autopsies you have done in your career?
So I'm over 200 a year, and so at 25 years, it's over 5,000.
What conclusions are you able to draw after completing an autopsy?
Well, it completely depends on the type of case. So again, I'm evaluating for diseases. A lot of our deaths are natural deaths, but we also evaluate, like I said, trauma, so we can have a traumatic cause of death as well.
Can you sometimes differentiate between, say, suicide and homicide?
Oh, well, yeah. So part of the process when we're evaluating the cause of death is to take in consideration the injuries as well as the circumstances and give our opinion as far as manner of death, which of manners of death, there's 4 types. Natural, which I made reference to earlier, suicide, homicide, and accident.
Okay, thank you. I forgot the manner of death word in my question. Have you ever been qualified as an expert in forensic pathology?
Yes.
How many times?
Again, an estimate over 100.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I would offer Dr. Presnell as an expert in forensic pathology.
Any questions or comments?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, I find this witness to be an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you asked to perform an autopsy on the victim in this case, Gregory Rice?
Yes, I performed an autopsy on November 10th, 2020.
Can you describe the remains as you received them?
Well, Mr. Rice was decomposing. Just the process of decomposition causes tissues to deteriorate. So he had a lot of what we call skin slippage, where some of the skin has slipped off. He also had some maggot activity. So after death, flies can lay fly eggs on individuals. Those hatch into maggots, and the maggots actually eat some of the tissue. So he did have some maggot, quote, injury, postmortem injury as well.
Did that decomposition and maggot activity affect your ability to make certain conclusions as to wounds?
Well, certainly it does hamper some of that, yes.
What was the first thing you did once you received Mr. Rice's remains?
Well, I kind of follow a standard protocol for all my autopsies. So I'm going to photograph as the body is received. So when the body is brought into the autopsy room, I'll take photographs. I kind of take photographs at all different steps of the autopsy. But then after that, we'll have to get them undressed so that we can evaluate everything, see everything. And during that process, I'll evaluate all the normal measurements, height, weight, that kind of thing, as well as injuries. Before we go to the inside to look at what's going on inside, we'll do ancillary studies depending on the type of case. Like for gunshot wounds, as in this case, We'll do x-rays to help us locate the bullets. After we finish with the external, then we'll go inside, we'll look for anything that's injured, any disease process. We'll also try to get some kind of fluid for toxicology testing. And then I examine all of the organs individually. Sometimes I'll take samples to look at under the microscope, sometimes I won't need to. And that'll be the main steps of the autopsy. After that, that part's done, and I'll go and put the autopsy report together.
So you mentioned that you did x-rays in this case. What if anything did those x-rays show?
Oh, well, they show multiple bullets inside of Mr. Rice.
When you examine a body, especially in this case, do you create do you have a diagram that you use to note the location of different injuries?
I do, yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to approach the witness with State's Exhibits 71A and 71B.
Yes, these appear to be copies of the diagrams that I did at the time of autopsy.
Your Honor, I would ask to admit to Exhibits 71A and 71B into evidence.
All right, any discussion?
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 71A and 71B is admitted into evidence. Okay.
Your Honor, I'd also like to publish them for use during Dr. Presnell's testimony.
All right.
We'll start with 71B. And if you could, once it comes up, while it's coming up, how many different wounds were you able to determine from Mr. Rice's body?
He has at least 5 gunshot wounds, potentially up to 7. And I'll show you on the diagram. We'll walk through them. Is this a pointer or does it change?
That's actually a microphone, I believe.
Oh.
Okay, whoops, there you go. That top up? If you hit that top button, apparently it is.
Oh, okay. All right, so just in general, before we go over the diagrams, he has 5 definitive gunshot wounds. He has one to the left side of the head, one to the left side of the chest, 2 to the left hip, and 1 to the right thigh. All right, so we're going to go through those. In addition to that, he has a couple other holes that connect up. I just cannot definitively say that they're gunshot wounds. So this first gunshot wound, and when I say first, I don't mean that this is the first gunshot wound that happened. It's just in the order that I've done, that I've enumerated them. Is to this left temple area. You can see it's highlighted in pink. There we go. Right there. It's the only thing highlighted there. This bullet actually goes obviously from his left. We're on his left side. His left towards his right. It's going in an upward direction, and it's also going towards his back. So it's going in this direction. It goes into the brain. There's not a lot of substance or architecture left to the brain because it's mostly liquefied at this point. But there is a bullet inside the brain, and we recovered that and designated that as the bullet from the brain.
In certain circumstances, are you able to tell, based on soot or stippling, whether an approximate distance of shooter to victim?
So I mentioned that I evaluate injuries, and obviously this was a gunshot wound. There's a bullet at the end of it. But the other thing we'll look at is just trying to interpret like what type of, not just what type of injury, but other characteristics of it. So for example, with gunshot wounds, one of the things that we'll try to look at is whether there's evidence that the gun was a contact gunshot wound, like the barrel of the gun is actually against the skin, whether it's a close range gunshot wound or whether it's a distant gunshot wound. And the way that we tell is if there is a rim of soot around the entrance wound, that would be a contact gunshot wound. When the gun is pulled away, there is it's not only the bullet that is exiting the end of the barrel, but you also get what you call, or what is gunpowder. If you think of the gunpowder like little pieces of sand, when the bullet exits, the little gunpowder can exit as well, and those little pieces of sand can strike the skin and cause little abrasions. We call that stippling. If the gun's close enough, that will happen on the skin. So contact is a soot up against the skin. Close range is, you may or may not see soot, but you'll see the little stippling marks, and distant is beyond that. Now, all that explanation to say that I can't tell in this case because the skin has slipped away.
So based on the victim's decomposition, you weren't able to tell?
Correct.
Okay. And would, I know you can't tell the order of gunshots, but would that wound in and of itself have been fatal?
Yes.
And then if we can go to 71A. What? Yeah. Okay, yeah, she doesn't have a phone line. Okay, so if you can just go through the other wounds that you were able to document.
Okay. You'll see a couple marks on here that didn't go anywhere. The pink ones are the entrance gunshot wounds that are definitive entrances. So again, first, but not necessarily first, we have the one to the left chest. That's okay. It's pretty well highlighted. So you have the one to the left chest, and it is going from his left towards his right. The only thing that I can tell is that it does damage the stomach. It ends kind of in the midline area, kind of right around where the aorta would be, but we have parts of the aorta missing, most likely from maggot activity. So I can't tell for sure if it did hit that or didn't. So that's the one to the chest. Then you'll see you have two to the left hip that are highlighted here. Their pathways are really close together. So think of it as two bullets going in. One bullet heads towards the tailbone, where I find the bullet.
You might have to stand up. I think there's a...
Okay. All right, so just to kind of reiterate, there's a gunshot that goes into the left chest, and it's going in towards the midline of the body. Definitely goes through stomach, may or may not have hit aorta, and I got the bullet from inside the body there. Then we have two on the hip. These both go in. One bullet ends up being in the right soft tissue, the soft tissue of the right hip, and the other ends up being in the tailbone. So I've got both of those bullets. And then the last one you can see here is into the right thigh, and it just goes backwards, and I get a bullet there. So I have retrieved 5 bullets from inside the body. And then you'll also see up here, there are there's areas where I have the circles colored blue. So if you look on the back of the right arm, so over on this right side of the diagram, you see those 2 blue circles?
Can I? Maybe I can help over here since our pointer's not working. Are you pointing to this area?
Yes, the 2 blue circles. Those 2 holes connect. I did x-rays in the area, but they don't really show any like bullet fragments or little shredding bullets or anything. So I can't be definitive that those are gunshots and not necessarily just maggot activity. And then on the left forearm, so in the middle here, the 2,
Is
yes,
that where you're pointing here?
the 2 blue circles. Those are 2 holes that also connect. You see I have it on, one's on the pinky side. Well, actually, they're both on the pinky side. One's up a little bit closer to the top of the forearm, and one's a little bit further down. Those 2 holes connect very nicely as well. Again, not necessarily any projectile fragments along the pathway, so I cannot be 100% definitive that that is an additional gunshot.
Would the fact that the victim's body had been basically submerged in water for approximately 5 weeks, would that have an effect on your ability to call those gunshot wounds versus possible gunshot wounds?
It's more that there was maggot activity and that maggots consume tissue, and so I can't be 100%. I mean, they look like gunshot wounds, but I can't be 100% that that's not maggot activity.
And you said that you recovered 5 bullets, so Your Honor, if I may approach, 139 has already been admitted. Are those the bullets that you recovered from Mr. Rice's body?
Shall I open it?
Yeah, if you need to, I can.
Well, I mean,
Are you, if you're not able to tell without opening it? Yeah, let me get.
that's a little intimidating.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just,
Here, I can.
I got it.
There you go. Okay.
I need the knife.
Sorry. Taylor, do you have scissors?
Oh,
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Okay. Let's see. So we have, the first one I'm looking at is labeled chest bullet. So that would be the one that I got from the midline of the chest. And it has the autopsy number that I'm associated with Mr. Rice. And then not his name, because when he came to us, he was originally not identified. So it has what we designated, the name that we gave him at the time of autopsy. Next one is the bullet from the right leg, or it would have been the right thigh area, again with the autopsy number and the designated name. Next is the bullet that we got from the right pelvis, so that would have been towards the front, the hip, the right hip area, with the autopsy number and the designated name. And then the bullet called sacral bullet, which is the tailbone bullet, autopsy number and name. And then finally the bullet from the brain with the collection envelope, the autopsy number and name.
Before I move on, did you at some point send bones from Mr. Rice's body to be examined by a forensic odontologist?
I believe he came and picked them up.
Oh, okay, thank you. You mentioned earlier that you will often do, or always do, a toxicology exam as part of an autopsy.
Yes,
Was one done in this case?
it was. We couldn't get any, we would like to send blood to test for toxicology. Because we couldn't get any blood, we sent just some of the fluid that we got from the chest cavity. And that was tested and showed THC or marijuana.
What types of substances does that toxicology test for?
It's supposed to be comprehensive and pretty much for like all the normal typical drugs of abuse: amphetamine, cocaine, benzodiazepines, marijuana, opiates. But in this case, because of just the quality of the sample, they actually couldn't test for ibuprofen and some of the diazepines or benzodiazepines. But it did test, like I said, it did pick up the marijuana. It also tested for alcohol, which was negative as well.
In your opinion, did any of the substances that you just testified to that were found in his bodily fluid contribute to the victim's death?
No.
So what is your opinion as to the cause and manner of Mr. Rice's death?
Right. Well, so I didn't specify any individual gunshot. I just said multiple gunshot wounds to the head, the torso, and the extremities. And the manner of death is homicide. In medical legal vocabulary or definition, that would indicate death at the hands of another.
Court's indulgence. I have nothing further. If you can answer any questions from the case witness.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Armando. May I please score?
Yes.
Good morning, Presnell. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. My name's Case Britton. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, I'm not going to be up here too long. I think I heard you say that you couldn't list the order of shots.
Right, at the time of autopsy, I can't tell which one came first, second, third, fourth, fifth.
Did the crime scene photo help you in determining? Could they help you out?
No.
Did you use any crime scene photos?
I have pictures of the overall body when they first found it, recovered it, but that's it.
And you're aware that body was recovered in Marion County?
Yes, in fact, the Marion County coroner is the one that authorized the autopsy.
And a Marion County deputy, I believe, Lieutenant Holtag, brought the body to you? Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if he brought the body. Usually the coroner transport will, but he was a detective that was there, yes. And he received all the evidence that we collected.
At that time, did you believe that the crime had taken place or that the body was in Marion County?
I didn't. I knew that the body was found there. I had no opinion really on where it perhaps might have occurred.
But I apologize. So back to the gunshots, you said because of the submersion in water, you can't tell what order they were?
No, it's frequently you won't be able to tell what order gunshots will occur unless something happened days before and there's evidence of healing at the time of death or days afterward when there's, for example, no bleeding associated with it. So no, it's not that it was decomposing or that there was some insect activity. I can't tell the order at the time of autopsy.
Okay, but can you tell, I believe you just said that you believe that the headshot was the fatal shot?
I said it is a fatal shot. The one to the chest also could have hit the aorta, which would be considered a fatal shot. And then the other two are mostly soft tissue, or the other three, I'm sorry, are mostly soft tissue injuries.
So, toxicology report, we revealed some marijuana. You said you did the appropriate testing. Is there any other testing you could do? Hair follicles that would give you any kind of other drug results?
I think you'd have to consult a toxicologist to what it is that you're looking for. I know, for example, I think some people have used hair follicles for arsenic and things like that, but that wasn't really something that was addressed in this situation.
I think I heard you say you alluded to skin slippage. Is that the same thing as grave wax?
I'm not familiar with the term grave wax, but skin slippage is, it's not like you lose all your skin and you can see the muscle inside. It's just the outermost layer of skin will come off, so you still have your underlying dermis or dermal layer. But that's just the process of decomposition as the body starts to fall apart.
Dr. Presnell, could you estimate the time of death given the body and the condition it was in after being submerged in water for over 30 days?
No, I did not attempt to do that.
And you would agree that the body had been deformed to some extent because of animal activity. Maggot formations we know were there, but fish, creatures, crocodiles, alligators in that brackish water, they could have had some part into the decomposition as well.
Alligator activity I would have suspected to be able to detect because it would be pretty significant. But there were a couple areas that were on the diagram that weren't colored that looked like maybe that could have been some marine activity.
Did you notice or could you tell of any defensive wounds?
No, the wounds that I could tell were the gunshots, then the two holes connecting each other, and then again there's a couple areas of just superficial defects that might have been marine activity, so nothing specifically a defense injury.
Now, most of the shots, they seem to occur on the left side, is that correct?
Yes.
How was the body presented to you when you first looked at it?
He's just on a stretcher.
What position is he in?
He would have been on his back.
He'd been on his back.
I mean,
Had
he
Gregory
might.
Rice set him?
He might have been on his side. I don't have a photograph of him on the stretcher. Just once we move him to the autopsy table, we'll definitely make sure he's laid out so we can evaluate him. But yeah, so I don't specifically recall if he was on his back or on his side.
When does rigor mortis typically set in?
Well, rigor mortis typically sets in after about 2 hours. It really depends on the individual and what they were doing at the time of death. It could actually happen earlier, but usually it starts in about 2 hours.
Is there a way through your science to be able to establish the amount of time he was in the water?
Not that I know of.
Would there be any difference between the salinity of the brackish water, fresh water, and just straight ocean water and the decomposition rate?
Not that I'm up to date on.
Not that you're up to date on?
Right.
Does that mean you don't know?
I don't specifically know. I don't remember in any of my training or experience there being a huge difference. I imagine if something is like the Dead Sea and is extra salty, that maybe there might be some preservation to that, but I haven't looked into that recently.
That's fine, Dr. President. I'm not trying to beat you up on anything like that. I just would imagine that salt water, would help preserve. Since you use salt, pure hand and stuff, it would help kind of.
Right.
That's just a question is to see the slow to the decomposition. That's all.
Right.
Thank you. Would freezing a body and then taking it somewhere else and then submerging it in water, that's got to have a different effect, correct, on the tissue?
Yes, so freezing a body, and I apologize for the comparison, but it would be similar to putting something in the freezer in your home. It's going to obviously prevent, hugely stop decomposition. However, once you unfreeze that object or that person, the freezing act itself has disrupted some of the cells, so as it starts to thaw, decomposition actually starts to accelerate once they thaw.
In this circumstance, is there a way to tell if the body was frozen and then thawed?
Not by autopsy, no.
Going back to the gunshots, they seem to have been to the line on the left side, is that correct?
Yes, 4 on the left side of the body and then the 1 to the front of the right leg.
I don't want you to use your expert opinion, but a theory. Would you say the gunshots would go up or down?
So again, I'm a little hampered by the state of the body, but I can tell from the x-ray that the gunshot to the head is going in an upward direction, obviously from his right to his left, but upward and back. The one to the right chest, I can just tell is going to his right. There's too much deflation of the tissues and whatnot to see if it's going up or down. And likewise, the ones to the left hip just kind of look like they're going straight across as well. The one to the right thigh might be going upward direction a little bit.
If the headshot is first, is he still standing?
No, he would not be.
If the chest shot is first, is he still standing?
He could be.
He could be. So we can eliminate the headshot being first.
I don't know.
Don't know?
Well, if he was shot in the head and then he fell, he then could then have been shot more on where the other gunshots were.
So just play with me a little bit. In my little theory, my little head here, you shoot him in the head, he drops, and then there's really zero reason to go put haphazardly 5 more shots in him.
Objection, Your Honor. That's not even remotely in her area of expertise.
She said, given what you have looked at, is it possible that the headshot was the final shot?
Yes.
Is it possible that the person staggered around after being shot in the leg?
Yes.
Is it possible that the person shooting wasn't that good with a gun?
I can't comment on that.
Based on your 26 years of experience, many different bodies you've encountered, and gunshot wounds that you've seen, the display of gunshot wounds on that body, do they look like they were shot by somebody that's got marksman skills?
Again, hard to answer because largely because the person being shot at isn't necessarily going to stand still.
Correct. They're going to jump around.
Or fall down.
Or fall down. Or fall down. That's right. They'll fall down. Is it possible that you could shoot a body, not close range, right? We're not close range because of no suits. Excuse me. I do that all the time. Or stifling? Stippling? And still get blood on you?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
If I'm not close to you, if I'm not close enough to you to where there's the soot residue of the stipend, is it possible for me to get blood on my person? What's the typical blood splatter? Would there be any blood splatter?
Yeah, so I will have to be upfront and say blood spatter is not an area of my expertise. However, I would say if you're at a distant range, and keep in mind though, well, number one, I wasn't able to evaluate whether this is a contact, a close range, or a distant gunshot. However, that being said, if I was, a distant gunshot wound can be as close as a yard away. So could blood get from, I guess it depends what they hit as far as how far the blood would go. So ultimately, I don't know the answer to that, but I also don't know the range of fire, so it's kind of difficult.
Thank you. That's where I was going to go next. It's kind of funny when you look at this. It says not a close range shot and not a mid range shot, a distant shot. But a distant shot's like a yard away, so that the distance kind of throws you off there a little bit. It throws me off a little bit. When I was thinking long range shot, I think even further back like sniper type stuff. Honestly, that's just because I don't do much with guns.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question at some point?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was just trying to explain. I apologize. Close indulgence, Your Honor.
All right.
Not Bliss.
All right.
Thank
Be direct.
Just very briefly, Mr. Britton just asked if you were able to tell if the shooter was a good shot or not. The victim was shot 5 times, correct?
At least 5, yes.
At least 5. You mentioned that at the beginning of your examination, you knew the victim's height and weight. How tall was Mr. Rice?
His remains, at the time of autopsy, were 73.5 inches, which is 6 feet 1.5 inches.
Thank you, because I always have trouble converting that. You said that it's his remains, so could that have changed from when he was alive?
I mean, it's not as, the body isn't as firm, maybe more relaxed, so, yes, there could be a slight difference.
And then there was some talk about if you freeze a body. Does, I'm assuming MUSC has a morgue or someplace that you store bodies.
Yes,
Do you store them in coolers?
we do.
Do those coolers freeze the bodies?
No, we have a freezer as well as the cooler, but most bodies are stored in the cooler. That does not freeze the body.
Thank you, nothing further.
All right, you may step down.
Your Honor, I would ask that Dr. Presnell be released from her subpoena and allowed to return to Charleston.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, she's free to go. Thank you very much. State, can you call your next witness?
The state next calls Dr. Wolf Bushkin.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Could you state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
My name is Wolf Dieter Bushkin. Last name is Bueschgen.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Bushkin, where do you work?
I'm currently self-employed. I have been in private practice for the last 20 years at Ashley River Dental in Charleston, South Carolina. I also contract with coroners statewide.
And what do you contract with coroners to do?
Forensic odontology or dentistry.
Can you explain to the jury what forensic odontology is?
Well, forensic odontology or forensic dentistry, I use the term synonymously, is simply the application of dental knowledge to forensic questions. So if I were to expound on that a little bit more, that could include anything such as malpractice. It could be bite mark evidence, but for the most part, with coroners, I'm dealing with personal identification.
Using teeth or jaws to identify remains?
I do, and it includes the teeth, it includes the jaws, it includes any dental restorations that might have been done in life. The foundation of forensic dentistry or odontology is that teeth are static, meaning they don't change. For the most part, teeth don't heal, so if you fracture it, chip it, wear it away, it's going to stay exactly the same. If you put a dental restoration on it, such as a filling, a crown, a root canal, it's always going to be there until it's taken out. Most people have gone to the dentist at some point in their life, so we have dental records on a vast majority of people, and we are able to use these because teeth are static. We are able to use that for identification purposes.
Can you tell us your educational background?
Well, I got a undergraduate degree in anthropology from Arizona State in 1995, a master's in physical anthropology from the University of South Carolina in 1997, and a doctor of dental medicine from Medical University of South Carolina in 2003.
And what is your professional background? I know that you're self-employed now and own your own practice. Have you had other positions?
I've had many positions. I've been essentially involved in the recovery, analysis, and interpretation of human remains for the last 30 plus years. Most of it, or a lot of it, has been in archaeological and historical contexts. But since I've been in graduate school, since 1995, I've been working on modern forensic cases, both anthropologically, and then after I graduated from dental school as a forensic dentist.
And is this type of identification an established procedure?
Absolutely. It's something that has been used for thousands of years. We have historical examples going back to the Romans and even before, but it is accepted, it is one of the most reliable methods for establishing identity. It's something that that the military uses routinely to find or to identify missing in action soldiers or those KIAs. It was used at World Trade Center. I think it was the second most common form of identification at the World Trade Center. Second only to DNA.
Your Honor, at this time I would offer Dr. Bushkin as an expert in forensic odontology or dentistry.
Any challenges or questions?
No, challenge, Your Honor, he's fine.
No
Objection, Your Honor.
Find this witness to be an expert in the field of
Forensic
forensic dentistry.
Okay. That's probably easier, Your Honor.
All right.
Were you asked to attempt to make an identification of remains in this case?
I was.
And who asked you to make that comparison?
It would have been the deputy coroner at that time
From Horry County?
from Horry County.
What were you given or what did you use in order to make your comparison?
In terms of what remains?
What remains, and then I'll approach with records.
They were resected jaws after autopsy. So I went to the morgue with my portable unit to take x-rays, and then I was given the jaws.
And so when you say resected, what does that mean?
That means in cases of severe decomposition or fragmentation, sometimes the jaws will be removed so they can be analyzed as a single unit as opposed to the whole body.
And I'm approaching with what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 13. Are those dental records that you were given as well to aid in your identification?
Yes, they are.
How did you go about conducting your comparison or your identification?
Well, the first step in doing that would be to see what kind of records I have, and in this case, I had written records that detailed a lot of the restorations that had been done in life. But more importantly, I was given a full mouth series of X-rays, which is essentially an X-ray of every tooth in the mouth. My goal at that point would be to replicate the X-rays as much as possible, so we can make a direct comparison. So when I went to the morgue, I had my portable X-ray unit and a laptop, and I was able to X-ray, photograph, and chart the teeth. At that point, I had the ante-mortem, the records before death, and then I had my records. I was able to make the identification immediately, and I did that on comparison of the dental restorations, the lost teeth. The records had stated that he had a couple teeth extracted. These had been extracted in the post-mortem remains. So everything was consistent and identical. The sinuses, the teeth, the number of teeth, the restorations, where the restorations were, the fractured teeth, the shapes of the root, the shape of the bone. I mean, yeah. So,
And just to be clear, what identification did you make for the
oh,
remains?
this was absolutely the Gregory Rice.
How confident are you in that conclusion?
I'm absolutely 100% confident.
Thank you. I have nothing further. Please answer any questions. Case break.
Awesome, gentlemen.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, you may sit.
Thank you, Dr. Bushkin.
Thank you.
I'd ask that he be released from his subpoena, Your Honor.
You got it.
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, he's pretty good. Thank you very much.
Would this be a good time to break for lunch, Your Honor?
We can,
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yes.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for lunch again. We've got those coming for you. If it's not here yet, it should be here shortly. Leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not discuss the case, even among yourselves. We'll take a good lunch, and then we'll probably be back. Let's shoot for 1:30. Okay? We'll be back. Thank you.
time would you like us at?
I guess we'll shoot for 1:30.
Thank you.
All right. Anything from the,
There's something I'd like to approach on if I could, Your Honor.
all right?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, we'll be in recess to 1:30. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hope everyone had a good lunch. Make sure you have your own notepads and no one else's notepad. State and call your name, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Erica Dontell.
Thank you. Raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Erica Dontell, Dontell.
May I, Your Honor? Thank you. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher,
What grade?
4th grade.
Are you married?
Yes,
And what's your husband's name?
Christopher Dontell.
And is he the Christopher Dontell who is involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you two been married?
10 years today.
Do you have any children?
2.
And were you working back in 2019 into 2020?
Yes, I was in transition. I had left my in-school position, kind of transitioned to working at my sister-in-law's daycare when I was pregnant with Clayton. And then in 2020, I got hired at my virtual school that I'm at now.
Okay. And so let me talk about, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. Was your husband working at that time, Chris Dontell?
Yes.
What was he doing?
His main job was he has a facility maintenance company that does maintenance all up and down the East Coast, and then he also was a deputy coroner for Horry County.
What did he do prior to being a deputy coroner?
He worked for a body transport company that moved deceased bodies for funeral homes and for the county.
Now, thinking back to 2019 and 2020, you mentioned somewhere during one of your answers that you were pregnant with Blake. How old were your children? Or obviously, that's a span of time. How old were they at that time?
Clayton.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
So Clayton was born in April of 2019. So he was up to a year, and then Charlie was 3 at the time.
In 2019, 2020, would that have covered the time period of COVID?
Yes.
So tell me sort of what was going on in your marriage at that time.
We were experiencing some difficulties, just because like I said, I had left my full-time teaching job and went back to the daycare, which was a good pay cut. And then when COVID struck, then Chris's business with the maintenance company pretty much came to a halt because gas stations and things weren't open like they were. And so that just put a lot of strain on us, and he was working for the coroner's office, and we had our 2 very little kids at home, so he was on calls a lot, so it was just stress and not sleeping with a new baby, so.
So not an easy time.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the defendant, Meagan Jackson?
Yes.
How did you meet her?
I met her for the first time at the celebration lunch that they had for Chris when he moved from the transport company to work for the county. And then shortly after that, she moved into our neighborhood and we became friends.
Okay. Do you recall about when she moved into your neighborhood?
I want to say maybe like December of 2019.
How far away from you did she move?
Just the back of the neighborhood, like 2 streets over.
Did you know if Meagan had any children at that time?
Yes.
How many children did the defendant have?
4.
Do you know their approximate ages? You don't have to be exact.
I think when we met them, 15, 13, maybe 9 and 8.
Prior to, let me back up. When you first met the defendant, were you and your husband and your children already living in River's Edge?
Yes.
Okay. When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, did your families start hanging out together?
Yes.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, was it just her and her children, or did someone else live there?
Yep, just her and the kids.
Did the fact that this was the period of COVID affect how much time y'all spent together?
Yes, because we would always get together and things, but then once everything shut down, we were at each other's houses every day. Either her kids were at my house or we were at her house every day.
Did you consider her a friend back then?
On this day 5 years ago, yes.
Do you consider her a friend now?
No.
You said that the defendant had 4 children. Did you know who their father was?
I knew of him, but I had never met him, but I knew his name was Greg.
So you never met him, you didn't know him personally?
Mm-hmm. There was one time that I think he either picked up or dropped off the kids in the neighborhood and we saw him in the car, but never like corresponded with him or anything.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Just a leading question.
Go ahead.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
It sounded very toxic. She mentioned a lot of abuse, and she would say things like, "Oh, I'm going to go drop off the kids if I'm not back in an hour, or send somebody to look for me." And it just she just made it seem very hostile.
When she mentioned abuse, did you ever see any signs of abuse on her? Any bruises, cuts, broken bones, or anything?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see any evidence that he was abusive other than what the defendant said?
No, just what she said.
Courts and buildings. Can you describe for the jury how big or small a part of your life, your family's life, the defendant became during this time period?
Very big. She literally infiltrated our whole lives, from our kids to our finances to just all areas. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was waiting to.
Yeah, she just, like I said, we were together pretty much every day. And even if us grown-ups weren't, like her kids were with my kids all the time. So.
Was the defendant working, where was the defendant working at this point?
Grindstaff Transport. She had taken Chris's spot.
Did that mean that the defendant and your husband worked together quite a bit?
Yes.
At some point, did you become aware that, or were you told that the defendant and your husband were having an affair?
Yes.
how did that information first come to you?
Through a text message from an anonymous website.
Okay.
Indulgence, please. Your Honor, I do have an objection based on 404. Would you like to see the document?
Well, I haven't moved to admit it yet. I was just showing you what I'm about to show her.
Okay. If you're just going to show me that, then that's all right. It's 2 pages at least.
Your Honor, if I may, actually, before I approach with this, when describing how big a part of your marriage the defendant became, you mentioned something about finances. Can you tell me what you meant by that?
Yeah, so there were multiple times when she would help us with like groceries. She would show up with groceries. She would go to like Sam's Club or, you know, BJ's or where, well, BJ's wasn't around there, Costco. And it was like whatever she bought for her household, she would double and buy for our household. And so she did that a few times. And then like if we would go out, she would like get the bill for us. And then it got to the point where by the summer of 2020, we were in talks of opening a summer camp because that's like my dream. And we were looking at properties and talking about pools. And so we just thought that we were going to be these business partners and open this camp that's nothing like anything that's in the area. So that's just...
Now, you said that the defendant had taken over Chris's job. So did you have some idea of the salary that she was probably making?
I want to say he was less than $50,000, I think, when he was on.
Did the defendant ever give you any idea of how she was going to afford all of these things, or how she did afford what she actually gave you?
It was my understanding from what she told us that she had inherited money from her parents.
Now, going back to the anonymous texts, I'm approaching you with state security.
I'm sorry, do we need to get a little instruction?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
If you can just look at that. And there's a second page. Are those some of the are those the anonymous texts you received?
Yes.
Was that on September 27th?
Yes.
So what did those texts tell you about an affair between your husband and the defendant?
That they thought I should know that my husband got somebody else pregnant.
Did it name the person?
Not at first, but then later on, it said, oh, and the person was Meagan Jackson.
Was there anything about the way the defendant's name was spelled that meant anything to you?
Yeah, I just felt like it had been, I even told Chris, like, when it came through that, I was like, this has to be somebody that knows her because they spelled her name correctly, because I've never seen her name spelled that way until I met her. So I feel like if there's anybody, I mean, my name's Erica, and people misspell that all the time, so I just felt like you have to know somebody to spell their name correctly, so I knew it had to be somebody close.
Did the text give you any indication of how they were able to find contact information for you?
It said that they found my number on a website. It was like special ed or something, like an educational website.
Was there any information about any trips that correlated with any trips that you knew about that your husband took?
Yes, there was. It wasn't like a screenshot or anything, but it was just a flight number and then the 4 names of the people that traveled.
Who were the 4 names, if you remember?
Well, I know it was Meagan, Chris, Savannah, and I think Savannah's friend.
Do you recall what you were doing when you got those texts?
We had just we had dinner plans with my friends, and Chris was on call, so usually when he was on call, we would ride to his car in case he got a call, and then me and the kids would just wait in the car, and so he had just gone into the house when the text message, the first one, came through.
Did they come through over
Yeah, they were spread out, yes.
So what did you do after you got that first one?
I texted him and I said, I need you to get somebody else to cover this call. And I said, we have a family emergency, I need you to come out here.
Did he come out?
Yes.
Did you confront him with the text or show him the text?
Yes, and because it was just from like the free site, he's like, I don't know what this is about, like, this just must be somebody messing with us, but I'll deal with it after the call. Let me finish the call and we'll talk about it or deal with it.
At some point, did you and Chris talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes, so once he, so while we were there waiting for him to come out, I got the text message about that he got somebody pregnant and where they found my phone number. And then once we started driving to the restaurant, because we were just like, we already had plans, and he was just saying like, I don't know who would do this, like who do you think would do this? And I was like, I don't know, this is not something I expected. And so we were still going to go to dinner, and then that's when the other message came through that said, and it's Meagan Jackson, and I have proof.
When you first got those texts, did you believe it, not believe it? What was going through your mind?
I was in shock. I was like, I don't know why, like, never saw that coming. I never would have imagined that we would be in this position. And that, so then when he seemed to not know anything about it, then we were just kind of like, okay, well, you know, it didn't seem real. Like, I couldn't believe that it was true.
And so did you and Chris talk to the defendant about these texts?
I believe that would elicit for fair evidence responsible, Your Honor. So I believe it's an improper question.
I'll allow.
Thank you. Did either you or did you and your husband together talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes, once the message came through that said her name, that's when I said, we'll call her. Like, get her on the phone right now. And he did, on speakerphone. And I said, why am I getting text messages that say that you're pregnant, and who is saying this? And she was like, I don't know, I'm getting the kids in the car, I have to call you guys back. And then pretty quickly hung up.
Did you ever have another conversation with her about the texts and who might be sending them?
Later on, there was another time where we were talking, and then she said that she figured it was Greg texting it.
Greg as in her husband?
Yes.
Did you, based on the text that you received, did you do any sort of research about anything?
Well, I looked up my own phone number because I didn't know what that website was, and I was like, well, how is my number just out for the public? And it came up that it was just my online resume from when I was trying to get a teaching job, so that's where it came from.
Did you look up anything else from the text or?
Well, later that evening, because, you know, we had gotten home from the restaurant and everything, and so then I just started looking up, like, just books about marriage and how to save your marriage, because I just felt like if this was even something that we were discussing, like, I mean, I knew we were having some stress and that things were, like, tight and just overwhelming at the time, but I didn't think that it would be to this point.
Did you do anything to prevent getting those types of texts in the future?
I tried to just block the websites or the freetext.com, whatever, so that I couldn't get any more. Because we talked to Meagan, she thought it was Greg, and so we just figured we'll just eliminate it being able to come through so that we could kind of work on it and distance ourselves from them, because she had mentioned to me a few times in the past just that Greg, was very, like, not protective, that's not the word I want to use, but like anytime she got close to somebody, he would cause problems. And that he had accused her in the past of having affairs with like men from the funeral homes and things. And so,
So what did you said you tried to block it. Did you do anything else? Did you keep your phone?
Yes, well, I kept, because I had two phones at the time because I was in the process of trying to get a new teaching job. And so I had gotten a phone number with a South Carolina number because I figured if I'm applying for jobs, it might not look as good if you have an out-of-state phone number, because I've learned that it's all of who you know, and so I wanted to look like I was local and I was here and ready to work. And so at that time I had two phones, and then I just kind of stopped using that one. And then Chris did take my phone to see if he could track who or where the message came from with somebody that he worked with at the police department, I think.
Okay. Now you said the defendant had told you that in the past, Greg, I guess, was assertive if she got close to someone.
Yes.
How long had the defendant been in your life at that point?
So if that was September, just since she moved in December, so less than a year.
You testified that you spent quite a bit of time with her.
Yes.
Had you ever had any issues with Greg up to
No.
that point?
I mean, we had never met him or anything. Like, usually, just from the stories that she told us and how, you know, she claimed it was so bad, like, if we knew that he was coming to get the kids or whatever, then we would leave. Like, we're like, well, we don't want to be here, you know, and we would leave if we knew, or she would leave to take the kids where they had to go.
Other than the defendant's own words, did you ever have any evidence that Greg Rice was abusive or inappropriate?
No, just what she told me.
I'm approaching with what's been marked State's Exhibit 99. And there are some email addresses listed under the 2. Can you read the addresses out loud and tell me if you know who they belong to?
Erica Dontell at gmail.com, Mrs. Dontell at gmail.com.
And whose email addresses are those?
Those are both mine.
Okay.
Colton's mama at gmail.com, Delangelo2 at AOL.com, Colton's, sorry, I can't see, mommy coupons at gmail.com, and then Aaron Benford 53114 at gmail.com.
Whose email addresses are those?
My family, so it's got my sisters and my dad.
Your sisters, plural?
My one sister, but
Sorry.
it's
Multiple
multiple
emails.
emails, yeah.
Just so we're clear, do you recall ever receiving this email?
No, I did not.
When your husband would be on call, would he stay with you, stay someplace else? What was that like?
Yeah, when he was on call, he'd just be at the house because his regular job, he worked from our home office, so he was at home until he got a call, and then he'd go on calls and come home whenever the calls were done.
Would he frequently be gone for kind of hours at a time?
Yes.
Do you remember learning that Greg Rice had disappeared?
Yes.
How did you find out?
Chris told me that Meagan called and said that Greg didn't pick up the kids from school.
Do you recall when that was?
I just remember it was a Monday. I guess the first Monday of October.
What did you think at that point?
Objection, calls for speculation, I believe. That's what she thinks.
I'm asking her what she thought. That she's not speculating as to what she thought.
Okay, hold on.
So at the time, based again on conversations that we had had, Meagan and I just assumed that based on her prior conversations about how he had a drug problem, that he was on a drug binge or something and just left because she had told me that he had done that before.
And again, you had spent time not only with the defendant but also with her children, correct?
A lot, yes.
So did you have any other information or evidence that Greg Rice had a drug issue other than what the defendant told you?
No, everything that I knew about Greg was from what she told me.
I don't have any questions for right now. Preston Britton is going to ask you some questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Court's indulgence.
Sorry.
Thank you for being here. I know this is difficult for you. When did you, I hate to ask you some of these questions, but are you aware that Chris and Meagan continued their relationship after all this went down? I think into October and November of 2020.
Yes.
And again, I'm sorry. And he was on the 27th of September. Y'all were communicating. And he was telling you that you wanted to stay with it and stay in the marriage and, right, is that right?
Yes.
You may not you mentioned a phone call with Chris Dontell and Meagan Jackson. Isn't that right? After you learned about what was going on?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Were you aware that he put her on? He pushed her to make that phone, be a part of the phone call? Did he tell you that?
No.
He didn't tell you she didn't want to do that? You know, be a part of that phone call?
No, because when I said call her, he called her.
Yeah, but he had set that up. He didn't tell you that. Do you recall telling one of the detectives in this case that Chris Dontell called you on the early morning hours of October 3rd and told you you don't have to worry about Gregory Rice anymore?
That did not happen.
I get the sense that you seem to want to put a lot in. It's not good. I understand that. Do you put any responsibility on Chris Dontell for his affair with Meagan Jackson?
Absolutely.
You agree that he could have stopped at any point and being inappropriate with her, right?
Yes.
And despite continuing to promise you he was going to stick with you, he continued to engage in acts with her. Isn't that right?
Yes.
You're not claiming to be an expert in anything in terms of forensic, digital forensics or anything?
No.
You didn't take any of the anonymous texts that you received and have those reviewed by an expert, see where they come from?
I did not.
Were you aware of how many years Gregory Rice and Meagan had been together on and off? Did you learn that during the course of your friendship?
I mean, I know it was longer than Savannah was alive, and she was about 15 at the time.
And I think you, maybe more so than many, could speak to the idea that marriage and bonds in those relationships can be very complicated. Did you hear that?
Yes.
You have been, you didn't have opportunity to be in the room with Meagan Jackson and Gregory Rice during their marriage, did you?
No.
Any of these investigators, when they were talking to you, let you know that it had sometime leading up to this, that Gregory Rice had been on top of Meagan Jackson one night at their apartment.
Objection, Your Honor. That's absolutely hearsay.
Sustained.
Would you agree with me that just because you don't yourself witness something in a person's marriage, doesn't mean it's not going on? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And something that happened in the past might not be happening, you know, it could be that their relationship was really bad for 14 years and doing a little bit better in this last year. Would you agree with that? In terms of Megan and Greg?
Not in terms of them, no. She didn't even refer to him as his name. She called him her baby daddy, her ex.
Okay. And he was both of those things though, right?
Yeah.
Did y'all, you or Chris feel the need to turn away any of the gifts that she gave y'all?
Not at the time.
You probably wouldn't have. I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Because she did it at a time when it was helpful to us, when, you know, we didn't have the funds to, you know, just extra laying around. She would just buy us things. As at the time, when you think somebody's your friend, that doesn't seem weird. But now,
All right.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Ready to wrap?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just let's go to the last question and answer. You said at the time her buying things didn't seem odd. Looking back, what do you think of it now?
the amounts that she was putting in, I felt like was more than our other friend. The amount, I can look back and see like that probably was a red flag. But like I said, at the time, COVID, the whole world was shut down. We were the only two families that were really hanging out together. We weren't seeing our other friends and things. And so she came across as just trying to help us out.
Do you still think that?
No.
Now, defense asked you, did you know that your husband set up this phone call with the defendant about those text messages? How much time passed between you saying, get her on the phone, and him getting her on the phone?
It was right then and there. At first he was like, well, I'll text her and see. And I was like, no, call her. And he did.
No time in between?
No.
You've testified that you put blame on him for this.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Did you leave him when you first got those text for free messages?
No.
Did you leave him when he was arrested?
No.
Did you leave him when he pleaded guilty?
No.
In fact, you're still married to him, right?
Yes.
Do you know what's going to happen in the future?
No. I haven't been able to talk to him privately for 4 years.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, you may stay. So you need a break.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'd ask that Ms. Dontell be released from her subpoena.
Any objection? All right, she's free to go.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we call the next witness, we need a break for some scheduling matters. I'm excused to the jury room. Leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not talk about the case even among yourselves. We'll come back out and start. state before we take a break?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
You can come to the bench.
No, sir, Your Honor.
How long do you think you need? All right, let's take about a 10, 15 break.